Albert Bartlett novice hurdle time, the potato race. It is my favourite race of the Cheltenham Festival for a multitude of reasons. I love the fact that you could think a horse is a supreme type and it goes and ends up in an Albert Bartlett. We've got some very, very good horses that are in it. I think it gets downgraded as the third division of the novice hurdlers. Maybe that's why I like it. I like a bit of an underdog. As it stands, it's like quite an open market, but it typically is, right? We'll all know that you can bet winners a long way out, but you could also bet some of them at big prices on the day. Kilbrick and Storm was the example. I think he won the November or December meeting. 25s after that was 50-1 on the day. So we are recording this in January. There may be some suggestions at the prices now, but you are not missing out on anything if you're watching this later or if you want to find out. But it is a good time, right, to get a bit of an idea of what's going on, because some horses will be intended to go for an Albert Bartlett. Some would have fallen by the wayside and end up in this race. And I think at this point, it's very important to have that handle on it, because I don't think Albert Bartlett winners fall into this race. As much as we can make a case for them, it should be by design that they're an Albert Bartlett type. So we'll keep going on. We'll go through some of the horses that are in here. High Class Hero heads the market, but I'm saying head the markets. It's 14-1 bar. Johnny Who, spelt incorrectly with Sky Bet, fuck you Sky Bet, is 16-1, but he's a bit bigger in other places. I think he's like sort of 20s-ish. He was an eye-catching, staying on fourth in the Challow Hurdle. Thanks so much, John Joe O'Neill Jr., for coming fourth by a head when we bet him each way. What a scumbag. Looks like a horse that was going to be an Albert Bartlett type anyway. John Joe O'Neill, the trainer, had said prior that was the target for the horse. So it's not news after what's happened. And that's what I'm saying about these types that look like they are. The one that I have suggested as a bet before, and I'm still absolutely confident wins this race, is Chapeau de Soleil. I've talked about it every single year, and I will say it for every year going forward. You need speed and a bit of pace to win an Albert Bartlett. We've seen lots of flatbreds that have done it as well. The fact that after his win, going right-handed again in a pretty shit race, but typically a race that they use for good horses, going right-handed when he wants to go left, but they said, we think he's finally going to show that he's the graded horse that we think he is. He could even step back in trip. Don't take that literally. I know they're running him in the Lawners and Ace on Sunday. Patrick's still taking the ride. I'd be worried if he won over that trip against those horses on Sunday, and then he might be a Ballymore type. But I'm hoping he'll just be sort of a never nearer third or something like that. I think he's got all the makeup to be a proper horse. Even his bumper race last year, I think it finished fifth or sixth, but the three that were at the front were clearly fast speed horses. He stayed on the same sort of pace as the ones that finished sort of 2-3 places in front of him. And he was way out the back as well. Like, I think he ticks every single box that I would want to see in an Albert Bartlett type. But like I say, you could probably wait, bet him a little bit after. One that does need a good mention is Welcome to Cartrees, because they're going the same route as Stay Away Faye. And I've had it from a very reliable source that 110% this runs in the Albert Bartlett. So similar to like a Stay Away Faye of last year. I think it was an Ascot run that it's had, but that basically it's like an intended target for it to come in. So where I say some horses fall by the wayside and end up here, it's an intention. They've thought about this for a long time. It's a good looking race. There's loads of horses that I haven't mentioned that have got chances. I know there's a couple that Paul has alluded to in other novice hurdles that I know that's going to come up in here. So Paul, I'm going to come to you first. Wide open potential race here. I always think that when I go through this, there's probably 5 to 10 horses that I could look at and say handicapper or doesn't want to be in here, all that sort of stuff. Then there's the few that I think you could be a graded horse. They're the ones I get excited about. Who are the ones that you might be getting excited about for an Albert Bartlett? Have you got any strong fancies?
Look, it's hard to have a strong fancy in an Albert Bartlett, even if it's the evening before, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is such a long list of horses that could come here right now, and there's some really nice ones as well on that list. So I've kind of tried to break it down. You mentioned Welcome to Cartrees. I think initially they thought he might be a Ballymore horse, but I think they changed their mind after that first run. We may have similar context there, actually, just given what you said before. And I think at the start of the season, they thought he might have been their best novice hurdler. So it's not quite worked out the way they thought, but I think what he's shown is, more stamina than speed as the season's gone on. Captain Teague obviously ran well over Christmas. That was a much improved performance. That probably was the thing that sealed which way round they would go. So I suspect Captain T will either go to the Ballymore or not go to Cheltenham at all. Welcome to Cartrease will come here. Johnny Who, as you said, I'm not sure. I believe that was the plan all along. I think they got a bit giddy when he ran last time and thought he was probably quicker than he actually is, and they found out at Christmas that he's not. So therefore, he's a Bartlett horse. I think he's decent, to be fair, but I think he's going to come up against a lot of good horses. So I wouldn't be getting that excited. Shepherd Soleil. Actually, it's sort of let me just park him for a second. I think of Gordon Elliott's horses. Croke Park's the obvious one. He runs in the Lawlers on Sunday. I think he's gone a little bit under the radar this season. Actually, I don't know why. I can't quite figure out why nobody really talks about him. I think he probably is ultimately an out-and-out stayer, but he's got a bit more class than your typical stayer. I don't think he's going to be out of place in that Lawlers and Nace on Sunday. I think he'll run a better race than you'd expect for a horse that just ends up with placing or just off the place in a Bartlett.
Mm-hmm.
Chapeau de Soleil, obviously you've already mentioned, also runs in the Lawlers and Nace. He's interesting because clearly they thought he was the best bumper horse last season. He had a little niggle. They couldn't quite get him right. Had no kind of prep for the champion bumper. Ended up running down the field, and probably a bit better than they thought he might in the end. But I think it's worth going back to what they thought about him in the first place, if I'm honest. They obviously rate him really highly. Patrick's still keen to be riding him, and Patrick's the one that works with all the young horses. And I think they see him as a stayer. I don't think he'll win tomorrow, but I think as long as he's within 6 to 8 lengths at the end, I think they'll be pretty encouraged and they'll be quite happy to step him up in trip to 3 miles. So I think he has to be on the radar. Would I sit here and say I think he's the winner? I wouldn't. I think he's one of a few that you can consider.
Yeah.
What I do think though is Willie has a real good potential nap hand. I looked early on at You Ought to Know. Clearly we've not seen him out now. I can't find out, but trying to find out actually whether he's had an issue. I don't think he has actually. I think just he wants better ground, and they're waiting. But I think they're going to get to the point where it's kind of becomes pointless because you're not going to get a run in on the right ground before the festival, or it's going to be too close to the festival.
Yeah.
I mentioned Peter Fahey's mare about going to the bumper. I think it might occur to them at some point, not soon, that they may as well go to the bumper with him. He's had 2 bumper runs. He's got experience, an extra season in training ahead of other horses, and the bumper horses this season, quite frankly, are shit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If I were them, given they've got a smaller bunch of bumper horses this time, the one that they thought was the best got turned over at Christmas. I think they'd be looking at him and thinking, we might as well go to the bumper. Let's just take him to the bumper. Because we can go novice hurdling in May at the Punchestown Festival. He's still a novice in October and November.
Yep.
So I'll take him out of the calculations, but I was actually quite interested in him. What else have we got? We've got Lecky Watson. That also runs on Sunday. I think he's probably in the category where they'll be thinking about what they do with him. Jamie, do you know how many runs he's had? I haven't got it in front of me. Has he had
3?
2 or 3 runs?
3.
Is that 3 already?
2 or 3. He's definitely had 2 in it because he ran a Thurles. It's 2 because he ran a Thurles and he ran at Navan.
No, he's got to run 4 times. He's got to run 4 times, so they'll have to squeeze an extra run in somewhere.
Yeah.
But
is it 4 times? Is it 4 times over hurdles, Paul?
Yeah, they've got to run 4 times now, so they'd have to squeeze an extra run in. If they thought they could, I'd agree with you that maybe they'd think about going to the pipe with him. And he kind of sits in that category of the horses that were just behind in last year's Bartlett for me.
Well, if he's going to run Sunday, they've got time to get another run in, surely.
But like he'll probably then run in the. He'll probably run in the Nathaniel Lacey then at the Dun Races.
He probably will. But it's still a tough old campaign for a novice, isn't it, to squeeze those runs in just before.
Agreed.
It's all a bit different now, isn't it? And Willie, don't forget, Willie starts his out later than Gordon, so that'll be 4 runs in 16 weeks, is it? So that's and the 5th run is then in March. So that's a tough old ass, really. But I'd agree with you. I think if they can, he's probably a horse that would be quite interesting for the Martin Pipe. And he wouldn't be my number 1 horse for the Bartlett if he came to the Bartlett. The one I like of Willis is Lachlan.
Yep.
I think he's probably the one. El Atlantique, I'd be very interested if he came here. But I think there's just a risk that he goes to the Ballymore. If he came here, it would be between those two for me. But I think Lachlan for me would be, the proper 3-mile stay-in hurdler, future proper stay-in chaser. Whereas you look at the likes of El Atlantique, you can see him operating at 2.5 and 3. So he'd be the one, I think. I don't know what price he is at the moment, Dave, but I think he's probably 20s or 25s or something like that.
That's right, yeah. 20s is top price you can get.
I think he's a really good bet. The only other one that I suppose...
25s with corals.
There you go. So, yeah, look, I'd definitely recommend him. I don't think he's going anywhere else. He fits in that mould of a couple of seasons ago with... when Willie had 1st and 2nd in the race with... the
nice guy.
The nice guy and... and he'd be the one that was the stayer, and El Atlantique is the one that probably doesn't quite see it out. I could see that happen, actually.
But that's exactly why with the Albert Bartlett, right? So it's like similar to I used to have a bit more of a handle with the Triumph, but I've changed my tact on that a little bit. I'm happy to bet a few of them. So like a Kilbrickenstorm, I did back him when he won at the December meeting, I think it was, and I backed him straight after 25s with Paddy Power. Like I say, he was 50s on the day. But it's handy to bet a few of these, I think, for the Albert Bartlett at certain timestamps. Like I say, we are, 6 weeks away from the festival when it's 14 to 1 bar. If you stick your tenors or whatever your sort of stakes are, you can back these ones now at 16s, 25s, whatever. You can comfortably bet 5 or 6 horses in an Albert Bartlett, and I don't think you're doing anything wrong. And at different times of the year, you might be able to make a bit of a case for different ones. But there's no reason why, like, if you thought at one point they could do well, that they won't do it in March. We've seen it season after season that sometimes the forgotten horse, like the nice guy, Jamie mentioned earlier when Sean O'Keefe rode him, I fancied the nice guy quite a lot. As soon as Paul Townend wasn't jocked on him, I'd already bet him, but it put me off betting him more on the day. And those types of things can happen. You leave it closer to the time to try and see the pecking order or bits more of form. And I do think it's worth striking now. So, with that said, I tipped up Chapeau at 33 16s now. Lachlan would be one for you, surely, right now, yeah?
Dave, this is one I haven't mentioned. I still haven't mentioned High Class Hero, which I think is probably the shortest in the market of Willis horses.
Yep, favourite.
So the point I'm going to make here is I could genuinely see Willie Mullins having the 1, 2, 3 in the Albert Bartlett this season.
Agreed. He's got an absolute stranglehold on it. And again, like I say, I'm a massive advocate of it, right? I used to, as a kid, right, we used to watch the race on a Saturday, and my dad would cheer a winner, and my mum would say one of two things. How much have we won? Or, well, of course you've won. You've probably backed them all. And it used to always stick with me that my mum basically made a thing of it that you're only allowed to bet one horse in a race. As soon as I got that little bee out of my bonnet and realised betting multiple horses in races, if you're getting good value on multiple selections or opinions, whatever it is the better way to play it. This is the prime example of it. So, Jamie, it got mentioned right at the end. I know you're chomping at the bit to talk about him. High Class Hero, right, is currently 14 to 1 top price favourite, but he's 12 to 1 generally. So there's loads of general 12 to 1 about him. He's a favourite for a novice hurdle at this stage, given what he did a little bit earlier in the season. 12 to 1 about him probably still is quite juicy. Is there any particular horse in the Albert Bartlett that you like?
I leave him to last.
You love him as well.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. The flying the ointment really, obviously, and Paul mentioned as well. Where is, and I said it in an earlier video, where is You Ought to Know? Do you know what I mean? Where is he? And that's because he absolutely trounced Grove Park in a bumper. Now, I know it's a bumper, and we can't say anything about it, but we just want to see him first. Il Atlantique, I'll make my judgment after the Lawlers with him, but it was just the way that he was beaten by Stellar Story at Naas. Was it last year in a bumper, and he was beaten by Firefox at Fairy House. He looks soft to me. He just looks soft in the finish. Patrick Mullins coming out about, he's better for a hurdle. Like he's an out-and-out chaser. He screams 2.5 mile chaser to me down the future, and that's it. Lecky Watson, yeah, I have an eye on him for a handicap. Predator's Gold, I mentioned him in an earlier video. As I said to you before, Dave, with 2 milers, he won his maiden over 2.5, and they brought him back to a grade 1 over 2 miles. Wouldn't shock me if they put him in here either. And Willie Mullins does like doing that, and he won it before with that Bloom horse on the stairs hurdle. That do 2 miles, and then go up then to 3.
And we love that the 2 mile form is genuinely underrated when it comes to Albert Bartlett.
Underrated.
Like it's a massive tick in the box, right?
Stoke the Fire was a flat handicapper for Mullins. He's after being bought by the Midland, and he won at Tremord last day, but it was bog ground, so I would take it. Stellar Story, forget about him. Ballyburn won't run. A horse that I mentioned now next up in the list impressed me on Saturday because I thought my trump card was a better horse than him. And my trump card is a boat, but that I Will Be Bay. Travel like the best horse in the rest. He's owned by Violent Valerius Stone, Florida Bear. I'm almost certain of that. And then the way it travelled and it scooted clear. I know my trump card is a boat, but the way it scooted clear really impressed me.
Bet like the winner as well on the exchange, because that was a market that I weirdly watched. They smashed that as well.
Yeah, they smashed it. Loughlin, to me, is a bit awkward horse. I didn't watch the race at Limerick. I went a bit by length. I'd say I must watch it, and I'm not disrespecting him. Johnny Who, I don't think is good enough after the Cheltenham run. Shanna Bob, don't look. I don't want to Cheltenham. Don't look like it's good enough.
No, he's a future
Captain Teague. I skipped Captain Teague for a minute. Chapeau to still, I agree with you. The attention, they thought he was the best bumper horse last year.
He's going to win.
But was he? Regardless of his setback, did they not mention that Ballyburn is better? No?
He's a monster. Chapeau's a monster.
Grove Park is not for me. I will watch him on Sunday, obviously. No, to get on to who I really fancy, and obviously it's High Class Hero. The record already, who's running mediocre races during the summer, and he's got hugely vast experience. And it's the old type of Albert Bartlett horse. To record an RPR of 149 in an novice hurdle around Limerick has to be a serious tool in my book. And now I'm going on the form line, obviously, of the Big Diane, who I will mention in a handicap video. The Big Diane was right next to Captain Teague in Cheltenham behind Midnight and Missile. And High Class Hero absolutely stuffed him. And I fancy Big Diane for handicap at Cheltenham because I think he get enough runs in. And he travels like a travelly thing. But High Class Hero for me all day long. I think 14-1 still with Carl.
Mad, isn't it?
It's madness. It will be a huge field because there's going to be a lot of afterthoughts for it. The only other at the moment, and I'll probably change March, the only two that will part with my cash at the moment if I was having another bet would be, and they're all Willie Mullins. So it'll be I Will Be Bay and Predator's Gold if he ran here yet. But the rest, no. And the only other horse, it's another Willie Mullins horse, obviously, that I'm waiting on, as you ought to know. But at the moment, High Class Hero all day long.
Awesome. Well, what we'll do is any subscribers out there, please go request a bet with Sky Bet for Willie Mullins to have the 1, 2, 3 in the Albert Bartlett, and we'll see if we can get a price on that because, I mean, he has got it by the bollocks, isn't he, for want of a better phrase. It's definitely a good-looking race, and again, with the point of doing this time of year is just to take stock of how things are. We will learn a little bit more with the Lord of the Nace on Sunday, the Nathaniel Lacey. There are a couple of clues over here as well, like the Leamington Novices Hurdle and bits like that, and the River Don and stuff, but it's not gonna shake up too much. I still think there'll be value and there will still be reason to back multiple horses. Plus, it's the last race of the 3 novice hurdles I've talked about. Go do those block bets, those each way multiples with the Supreme, the Ballymore, and the Albert Bartlett. You could have chunks of money riding on 3 or 4 horses for places. There'll be extended places. We talked about the liquidity off of air, right? And I'll just touch on this in the last bit of the Albert Bartlett. There's 15 or just under £16,000 matched on this. The Brown Advisory's got 60k on it. So this is a market that you can see from the prices is a windy market, as Kevin Blake would say. There will be no levels of confidence in it other than Chapeau de Soleil absolutely shit zone.